The ruling on the field stands.
We deliver jerseys, funny foam fingers, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
Blog Talk Radio.
Rockers in Recovery Media is dedicated to carrying the message of addiction recovery through music, news, events, and festivals taking place within and not limited to the clean and sober community.
Hey, good morning. John Hollis, Waking Up Blessed here at Rockers in Recovery Radio. I want to welcome everybody to the show. We've done some changes over the last week and a half or so. You can check us out now at Waking Up Blessed on Facebook. The show is also airing on Facebook, Rockers in Recovery. You can also check it out at Lori Sullivan's profile page, my profile page, and, of course, at rockersinrecovery.com. We also have it on LinkedIn. You can listen to it on LinkedIn at Rockers in Recovery and Google Plus at Rockers in Recovery. So check us out and enjoy the show. Of course, Waking Up Blessed is based on, having personal stories of experience, strength, and hope, and talking about, a good day and how do we wake up blessed and how do we move forward after we wake up blessed. And I do that one day at a time by not picking up, and by God's grace, I get to wake up in the morning. I can tell you this, that if I was using, there's a pretty good probability that I wouldn't be waking up at all if I was still out there and doing my thing, and waking and baking didn't work for me. So our friend this morning is Lyle. He's going to be coming on the air with us. Lyle, welcome to the show. I want to thank you for being on Waking Up Blessed. And you have, it's great, man. You've had some huge accomplishments in life, and directly because of your recovery. And
Absolutely.
one of the things I wanted you to do is just tell our audience who you are. You've been on the show before, but there's new listeners, and I want people to know exactly who you are and what you do and kind of, where you came from.
Oh, well, okay, so where I came from. Grew up in Miami, ventured out on my own at a relatively young age, and wasn't quite prepared for the world. Went through a variety of experiences that led me to where I eventually got to today, and included in that were a lot of poor decisions and a lot of unfortunate circumstances, including obviously substance use, but I was abducted, kidnapped, tortured, and left for dead in the Everglades, raped. It was definitely a life-changing event, and oddly enough, for the better, because I had suffered some other abuses earlier. I was a very angry person. And the one thing that God taught me through that experience was the power of forgiveness and the power of prayer. As I prayed to him, there was a total peace that came over me. And then there's a whole range of other miracles that probably needs an entire made-for-TV movie to go through in that experience. But really the fact that I was able to forgive this individual before there was even a trial or anything else. And that individual is still incarcerated today, and that was in the mid-'70s. So it was significant enough of a crime for him to still be in there. All that said, that forgiveness freed me from a lot of the anger and resentments that I carried. Unfortunately, that alone wasn't enough for me to stop abusing myself. I went away to college and joined the party scene in a college town, and did all the things that come with that, and was biologically, neurologically able to use more than most. So I was one of those what they call successful users. I was able to stay functioning and hold jobs, and and wasn't real good at relationships, although I had those typical relationships we have in our use. But the Lord had already tugged on me, so there was always a discomfort with heading down the wrong path. And eventually he just brought me to my knees to a point where I had ended up, I still had a business, I still had an income, and yet I found myself living in my car. And it was a really strange thing to have money in the account and be living in your car, a two-seater coupe, no less. And then someone stole the car, And so, and everything I owned in it. So that was another moment like, hey, maybe this isn't working. And so from there, I came to that point of full surrender and said, almost anyway. I had some people that owed me money, and so my thought was someone offered me an opportunity to go to treatment for the second time. First time I went, it was a very high-end and expensive treatment. And then when I told them I didn't have another $40,000 for the second month, they launched me and said, oh, you magically got well, and graduated me suddenly when they realized there was no more money to get from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did all of the things that they told me to do. I did 90 meetings in 30 days because being the typical addict overachiever, they told me 90 and 90, so I went to 3 a day so I could beat that stick, and win that award. But after relapsing, and I went to a place that was really for homeless men with addictions, and it was a faith-based center, and I was able to explore my faith more fully there, and was given a couple hours each night to dig into the scriptures and explore my relationship with God, and that was really what was pivotal for me as I began to get grounded. I had a business that was very successful financially, but yet I was a complete and total mess, and so I began to look at reprioritizing my life, and I volunteered at that place. It was a 9-month program. I went in there thinking it was a 30-day program, and they hoodwinked me on that one. And I'm glad they did, because I needed the 9 months and more. At the end of the 9 months, I said I wasn't ready, and I asked if I could stay on as a volunteer. So I did that. I lived and worked there for a while, a year and a half or so afterwards, because I felt safe there. I knew myself well enough to know that my drug of choice had a long grip, and the cravings and the thoughts and the drug dreams and all that continued for quite some time after I stopped using, and I knew that I needed to be protected. So I made sure that I didn't have access to my own finances. I made sure that I was fully accountable to other people, and again, I was able to explore my faith, and through that joined a Bible study where I ended up meeting my wife, and my to-be wife, now wife. And just following that path, started a recovery church down in the Homestead, Florida City area with some other folks, and sort of stayed on that path, and then went back to school, went to seminary, got ordained, went to school and got a psychology degree, and began to really work in the industry after a few years of volunteering. And that sort of led me in a roundabout way to opening the Shores, which we then closed 5 years later. And now I'm working with an excellent team of really phenomenal people over at Transformations Treatment Center in Delray. Really, really impressed with what they've got going on there. It's been a real blessing to be a part of it. That's
that says a lot. That says a lot, Lyle. Yeah. I just wanted to interrupt real quick, because that says a lot for where you're working at Transformations. You're a guy that owned your own center for 5 years. For you to be able to say that with, the amount of integrity that you have shown over the years, just shows that they must be doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I talked to a lot of folks when we closed the Shores. I had a lot of offers coming through the door, which was, another blessing. And some, quite frankly, were throwing, gaudy sums of money at me. But I just, anybody who knows me knows that ethics and proper practices and really good clinical outcomes have been my the drum that I keep beating for many years now. And I just wasn't comfortable with any of these other locations, but this place really has that combination, and that's why I was so impressed and happy to be a part of it.
Over the years, from the beginning of your recovery, starting your recovery, and going through the process, you've become a board-certified addiction professional. You're an international certified alcohol and drug counselor, an approved training provider for the Florida Certification Board, and you're also a certified health coach. So when you start to wrap all of that together, along with the process of owning your own center, and then you also were director of center. So all of those things, when you put them all together, what do you think is happening right now in the recovery process that needs to change because there's a lot of people dying, Lyle?
There are. There's a few things that I think that we're missing. First of all, there's the majority of places are working on the medical practices that are based upon financial services. And what I mean by that is the insurance companies are driving what happens, how it happens, and how you get reimbursed. And so that's fine and dandy. They're a business and they're very good at what they do. But the issue is that for the most part, they're not providing sustainable reimbursements to provide quality care. And as much as they want to say that they're working toward outcome-based payments, I haven't seen it happen yet. And I think that would be a beautiful thing. Some people are afraid of that. I think it would be great if reimbursements were based upon outcomes, because that way people doing quality work would truly be able to afford to do quality work. One of the issues now is that, the insurance companies will look at a certain area and say, we're only going to reimburse this much there. And that's fine if it's sustainable. The difficulty, of course, is that if you're paying someone $200 a day to do something that costs $600 a day to provide, then that's not sustainable. And that's sort of what we're seeing. The other thing is that it's based on what makes sense for them financially in the short term rather than the long term. And again, they're brilliant people when it comes to these figures, so I'm sure they've got a reason why they do it the way they do. But providing quality care the first time, to me, would seem to be the wise idea, even if it costs twice as much as what they're doing now, simply because you wouldn't have these repeat relapses, going through the cycle, detox again. And the average person, I know when they did the last study that I looked at was quite some time ago, it was like 4.6 times through treatment before they got it. That's not acceptable, particularly today when people are dying. When you may get to 4.1 and you don't have another shot. With the stuff that's out there now with the fentanyl, carfentanil, and other synthetic opioids that are killing people at a rapid rate. The other problem I see is that it's sort of a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I'm a fan of all paths, and I believe that there's a right path for each individual, but there's no one path that fits every individual. And I believe that a lot of centers are being sort of cornered into, this is what you do. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. So a good example is there are insurance industries and carriers that are saying, we're not going to reimburse unless you're doing MAT. Well, MAT's great for the people who need it. The problem is that if you're a benzo addict or a meth addict or you are substance use disorders that involve crack cocaine, there's no MAT approach for that. There's no such thing, not that's proven and has any evidence base to it. And there's actually more people dying from alcohol than there are from the opioids. The opioids are grabbing the headlines, and deservedly so, because it's killing people at a very young age and very quickly. But we're putting a blind eye to everything else. And quite frankly, the MAT approaches for alcohol have a lower efficacy than do the ones for opioids. And there's also some short-term thinking on some of that. Some people who get put on that don't need to be, and matter of fact, would do better not to be. But we're doing a blanket approach with the theory that and the thinking that people on that system stay engaged in treatment longer. I'm not sure that staying engaged in treatment for life is the plan that is best for everybody. Again, it definitely is for some people. So I'm not naysaying it. I'm just saying a blanket approach to any one thing is not going to be helpful in the long run. Then the other thing is those that just refuse to accept that is the right path for some folks. So there's folks that are refusing to go down the path that will save their life, and we're seeing people die. And then, of course, there's what caused it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that came into play to put us in this situation in the first place. And we could sit there, and certainly I have talked about the role of the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors and the bonuses they get for prescribing more opioids, and all those things are factors. There's obviously the greed of people importing the synthetics from Mexico and China and those kind of things. But the real issue we got to get to is why there's such a high rate of use in the first place? whether it be
Correct.
opioids, alcohol, stimulants. What is it that we, particularly as a nation, need to medicate? What is it that we're doing here? And I believe there's a few factors there. There's an age-old understanding of a spiritual component that there's trauma, stress, but now we have the ability and understanding of a genetic predisposition and the ability to actually test for it that we can see. Look, you look at the Lakota tribe out in the Midwest. I think that I saw a report said they were 98% were alcoholic and pretty much the other 2% were teetotalers. So basically their genetics set them up for alcoholism and other substance use disorders because one drink and they're instant alcoholics. And the same thing is true with some Native Americans up in the Alaska area and some other in the colder climates. So there's obvious and clear, distinct signs of genetic predispositions. And now with 40 years of research backing it, Dr. Kenneth Blum has actually come up with a genetic test to be able to test people for their predispositions and then provide, and this is what I love, actual solutions. One of the things I've always told my patients when I'm working with them is ask 2 questions every time you're in a group or an individual session or any other, or in a 12-step meeting, wherever you go, ask 2 questions, and they are what and so what. The what is, what am I hearing? What is the information being shared? And the so what is, what's that got to do with me and how do I apply it in my life? And so as I work in the research end of the world as well, and I go to these scientific conferences and I hear people talking about their studies on how women with laparoscopic, lap band surgery have a higher rate of alcoholism and all these other. I'm like, okay, that's fascinating information. How do we save lives? How does that apply to real humans? How do we do something with that to help people? And the beauty of what Dr. Blum has done in my eyes is that he's given a solution. Okay, here's the problem. You have a neurotransmitter deficit, and here's how you fix it. And that's what I think we've been missing a lot, is looking at the real problem with each individual. And again, it's not that simple that simply knowing your genetics is going to help us, keep you from using and save your life and change your life. That is a big factor. But it's about 50% of the picture. There's no magic bullet out there. We still need the cognitive behavioral therapies, the mindfulness. We still need the counseling and those other things. We still need the 12-step process, which walks us through, which quite frankly, if you look at it, and I get that question all the time since I work in the research end of things, do the 12 steps have evidence-based value? I'm like, well, do you think that someone in early recovery needs accountability? Yeah. Do you think you get that? Yeah. What about community, other people that are doing the right thing, walking in the right direction? Oh, yeah, absolutely, crucial point. Okay, well, both of those things are available. So if we go no further, without even looking at the actual process of the steps, then we see some value in that. I could obviously go further into that and think it's a great thing. I don't, again, it may not be for everybody, and I understand that some people are uncomfortable in that environment. But just because we don't have evidence, because it's an anonymous program and hard to collect data. And to that end, the actual first AA room did collect data back before they had all their traditions that said that you shouldn't do that. Clarence Snyder, who opened the very first AA meeting, collected data, and I think it was 93% of the people who were part of that meeting stayed sober till the day they died. That's a phenomenal number. Now, different world, different time, different culture, and largely just alcoholism as opposed to some of the other substances. So not shocking as it sounds, but nonetheless still successful. So I think University of Miami is actually doing a study now on that to start trying to collect some evidence-based data on the 12-step process.
I think it's an amazing. I wanted to bring in one other thing, Lyle, because I think it's important that we talk about this, because you've brought out some valid points, and I want to go like little by little here. We got about 11 minutes left, so one of the things that you were talking about was MATs. You were talking about the private sector and the insurance pay versus, of course, the nonprofit, public sector, let's call it that, where you have organizations out there like government organizations. And in my opinion, anytime you put government into the equation, nothing good comes out the other end. It usually becomes very bulky. Money gets spent in ways that it probably shouldn't be spent. It just is not as conducive as a private sector, which is going to be more lean and really drive towards what what the purpose of treatment is, in my opinion. So when you look at like SAMHSA and you look at the health organization or our country's health organization as a whole, and the money, $900 trillion a year that they, or $900 billion that they were given to help fight addiction issues like the opioid crisis. I think they were funded a lot less than that, of course. But the part is that if you're spending all of that money on awareness and you're not spending that government money to fund beds to go to treatment, how does that work?
Yeah, well, and that's part of the problem we have. And it's also, again, it's short-sighted. So I will tell you that when I spoke with the previous administration and I met with them on some of these issues and the money was not yet earmarked even, they explained to me when I met with Michael Botticelli, he said, I want to approach this like the AIDS epidemic. This isn't, he didn't see it as trying to resolve or deal with addiction. He saw it as trying to stop death. And so he said, the first thing that they did when they went after the HIV/AIDS epidemic was to try and figure out how to keep people from dying. Then, try and figure out how to keep it from spreading, how to keep it from happening in the first place, and then looking for a cure. So that was an interesting analogy for me, that they weren't actually looking to resolve the issues. They were looking for quite frankly, a Band-Aid approach. They were looking because people were dying, and we need to stop people from losing their children. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. But you're right. When you look at it, and we're doing education, so the prevention work, which quite frankly, efficacy-wise, just value-wise, I applaud, and I'm involved in prevention efforts. So please don't take this wrong, but the value, the efficacy is very low. The success rate of prevention efforts is considerably lower than recovery efforts, treatment efforts. So is that the best place? Certainly stopping people from ever going down that road in the first place is desirable. But right now we're in the middle of a problem that already exists, and we need to be putting the bulk of our attention toward that existing problem. And you're right. If we're not funding treatment, what are we really doing? And where is the money going? And it is largely going in to fund pharmaceutical solutions. The very same people who created the situation are now being paid to come up with their solutions to the situation. And I just don't know that that's the best effort, the best use of our money. Again,
and it isn't until now, Lyle, it isn't until we start to talk about this stuff and we start to, really, issue a question out there, hey, listen, okay, great. And I think MATs and everything you said about MATs is, in my opinion, absolutely correct. But I also believe that if our government is going to throw the type of money that they're throwing at this for all the research and for prevention and education and awareness, all of that, if they're doing that and they're putting the bulk of the money behind that, and I read an article where last year last year and the year before, they literally funded only maybe 1,000 people to go through treatment. That's nothing. That's like nothing. So when you think of the big picture of our government that wants to get involved and they want to control it, SAMHSA wants to tell everybody what they need to do. They want to work with the insurance companies and tell the insurance companies what they should be doing, and the insurance companies start following suit with the MATs and doing blanket, coverage. If you don't do this, we won't pay for that. Well, part of the problem is that there's no government solution financially for anybody getting treatment. It's funny, when you call SAMHSA and you say, hey, listen, I need treatment and I don't have any money, they will not say, well, listen, we have a fund that might be able to help you. They'll send you to a sliding scale treatment center in your area. They do nothing to be able to support the effort, which is scary. Why are they there? Why do they have a staff, and why are they getting paid? It just doesn't make sense to me. So, again, I'm glad that we're talking about this, and I think it's something that we need to talk more about. We are coming down to the end of the show. What I'd like to do is have you just give your information where people can reach you if they want to ask any questions, how they can contact you, your full name, your emails, any website that you want to give out all your information now, so that way people know who you are and what you're doing.
Sure. Full name is Lyle Fried, spelled like Fried, F-R-I-E-D. My personal cell is 772-332-8711. Again, that's 772-332-8711. A few websites you can go to. One for the addiction testing, the genetic testing, is addictiondna.com. A facility number, if you want to reach somebody about getting into care, is 888-919-2619. Again, that's 888-919-2619. And if you want to learn more about the transformations, you can look them up at Transformations Treatment. You can just Google them and you will find them quickly and easily. And if you want to know more about any of the stuff that we've talked about, you can always email me, and it's my first and last name, LYLEFRIED @bellsouth.net. And I'm happy to answer questions, and I love sharing the information and the research that I've done, and I'm really encouraged by some of the things that lay on the future and are coming down the pipeline as far as prevention and relapse prevention, as well as stabilizing neurotransmitters and helping us have a better, happier, healthier life. And of course, I still continue to be involved in the faith-based community as well, and training people in churches on recovery from that aspect and incorporating the science into it. Really a phenomenal blend.
Great stuff. I want to thank you for being on the show. If you're checking us out right now, we are going to be rebroadcasting this show tonight on Facebook Live. You can check it out at Waking Up Blessed on Facebook, Rockers in Recovery on Facebook, my, of course, profile page, and Lori Sullivan's profile page. All of that can be found tonight on Facebook and doing Facebook Live with the show. Please check it out, 9 o'clock tonight. And in the meantime, if you want more information about Rockers in Recovery, you can go to rockersinrecovery.com. Lyle, thank you for being on the show, being a part of our world. Lyle has been a huge supporter of ours, and we support Lyle, and that's how this works. And we just thank you and Darlene for all you do. You guys are great people, and blessings to Darlene and her loved ones, her mom and dad that are going through some issues. We'll have everybody in our prayers. We love you much.
Likewise. Same for you, Lori and Chris. Love you guys.
Okay, guys. Appreciate your call.
All right. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks for being on with us this morning, listening, and being a part of Waking Up Blessed. I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show. And you have a blessed day.
Rockers in Recovery Radio is based on opinion only and is not meant to treat or diagnose any health or mental health issue of any kind. If you feel you need help for any health-related issues, please contact a physician or mental health professional. The opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of Rockers in Recovery.
Well, cry me a river, my favorite saying these days. How you feel no longer matters to me. Life turned my heart cold. You can break through. You can fight with my soul. I got nothing thrill.